Hi everyone, welcome to another crochet tutorial with me, Laura, and in this video we're going to be looking at the Solomon knot. So sorry it's been a long time since I've done a video. I've actually been away in Japan, so I shall hopefully be releasing a few little cute Japanese inspired patterns on my website happyberry.co.uk if you want to check those out. But in this video we're going to be looking at how to do the Solomon knot and working it as a foundation chain and then being able to work it into an actual piece, so you can make it into a scarf or a shawl or something like that, so that looks like this. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the actual Solomon knot itself. So let's do that. Okay, so for this tutorial, if you want to use the same yarn that I'm just using a DK light worsted weight yarn, so it's a yarn weight of 3. And with that, I'm just using a 3.5mm E4 crochet hook. So the first thing we need to do is a slip knot. So just work your little slip knot. And we're going to work the Solomon knot straight away. So we're going to do literally foundation Solomon knots. So what you do, so after your slip knot, what we're going to do is we're going to bring up a loop of our yarn and we're going to place our finger and thumb there. We're going to hold that yarn open. We want to keep a gap open. We're going to grab our yarn and using your thumb and finger, keep a gap open. So you bring that through, you've got an open hole from those two bits of yarn and that bit of yarn, there's a gap. And it's in that gap we want to put our hook. So we're going to put our hook into that gap and then we're going to grab the yarn again and bring it through. Okay? And then we just do a single crochet, or in UK terminology a double crochet. So we just yarn over and pull through both those loops to secure our Solomon knot. So there we go, it creates that loop, it keeps that loop open. And then we repeat that again. So we're going to bring up a loop, move our fingers up to hold that gap open, grab our yarn, so keeping a nice big circle open like that, keeping that gap open, and we're going to put our hook into that gap and grab the yarn and bring it through, and then we yarn over and pull through those two loops to complete our second Solomon knot. And we just repeat that over and over again. So let's bring up another loop, use our finger and thumb to grab the yarn and hold that gap open, bring the yarn through, so you've got your gap open, put your hook into that gap, underneath that one bit of yarn, bring the yarn through, yarn over, pull through both loops to secure. And there we go. So that's how you do the Solomon knot. But a lot of people ask, how do you then turn that into a project? How do you turn that into a square of work? So I'm going to do a few of these just for an example. So I'm going to do 6 in total. That's how many we got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's do one more. Let's bring up a loop. Grab the yarn, use your thumb to hold it open, put your hook back through the gap, yarn through, and then secure. Okay, so we've got 6 Solomon knots like that. So we're now going to turn this into a square pattern, or just working in rows. How do you work it in rows? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work 2 more Solomon knots that are going to sit on top of these last 2 Solomon knots. So this is the end of our row. Okay, so we've got 6 for this sample. So we're going to work our new row now. So we're going to do 2 more Solomon knots. So pull up the yarn, grab it, keep the hole open, put the hook through the hole and secure, and do another one on top of that. So we do 2 for our next row. Okay, and then once we've got those 2 new, we're going to skip these 2. So we've got our 2 new ones. We're going to skip these last 2 of our last row, so these 4, and we're going to sit these 2 on top of these 2. So skip your 4 Solomon knots, 1, 2, 3, 4, and find that single crochet that you did there. Just pop your hook in there and do another single crochet, or double crochet in UK terminology. So what you've got is your 2 new Solomon knots are now sat on top of your last 2 Solomon knots. Okay, and then what we're going to do, we're going to do 2 more Solomon knots. So bring up a loop, bring the yarn through and do a Solomon knot. Okay, and our second one. Okay, so we're always working in groups of 2. So we've got our next 2 Solomon knots, and we're going to skip 2 Solomon knots on our foundation row. So skip 1, skip 2, find that single crochet in between and do a single crochet in there. Okay, so those 2 sit on top of these 2. Then we do 2 more Solomon knots. It's 1 and another one. And then find our last 2 Solomon knots, and we're going to work into that last Solomon knot. I mean, you can do a single crochet at the very beginning if you want to, but I always forget to do that. So I'm just going to work into the very last Solomon knot, just under that bit of yarn, and do a single crochet. Okay, so that's our second row of Solomon knots, and what we're going to do now is we're going to alternate our next row. So we're going to do 2 more Solomon knots, so we're still working in groups of 2. So we do our next Solomon knot, and then our next Solomon knot. Okay, turn on project, but this time instead of skipping 2 Solomon knots, we're just going to skip the first one. Okay, so these are 2 new ones. This is our first one of this row. We're going to skip just 1, and then we're going to find that single crochet in between and do a single crochet. When I work into that single crochet, I'm just grabbing a bit of yarn in the middle, so it doesn't really matter which bit you work into as long as it's in between the Solomon knots. So this time we've got 2 Solomon knots, but we've only skipped the 1, so we're alternating. Now we work 2 more Solomon knots, so we're always working 2 Solomon knots, but we're alternating the rows. So 2 more Solomon knots, and then we're going to skip 2 this time, so we're only skipping 1 at the beginning. So skip 1, skip 2, and then find the single crochet in the middle. Just grab a bit of yarn and do a single crochet. Okay, and as you can see, that's going to alternate our pattern, so it's going to look less stringy. And then we do 2 more Solomon knots for our next bit. 1 and another one. 2, so 2 more Solomon knots, skip 2, 1 and 2, and find that single crochet, do a single crochet, and that leaves us with 1 Solomon knot at the end, just like we had 1 at the beginning. But what we're actually going to do is we're going to do just the 1 Solomon knot this time when we're at the end, and then we're going to finish up with a, let's see, a triple crochet, I think. So we're going to yarn over twice, skip that last Solomon knot, go into that single crochet, bring the yarn through, and whenever you do a double crochet or bigger, we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So in UK terminology, that's going to be a double treble. And the reason we have to finish up with that at the edge rather than the Solomon knot is because we need to be up here rather than down here. So by the end of that odd row, if the sun has come out, what we do, the very first Solomon knot we did on this row is going to be our side Solomon knots. We're not going to count that as our stitch count. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is the same stitch count we had at the beginning. And obviously the last one is a treble, which I'm not going to count as a stitch. Okay, so that's the end of that row. Now we're going to move on to the next row, and we're in the right position. So we're going to start off with 2 Solomon knots. Do our 2 Solomon knots, one and another one. Turn your work, but this time we're going to skip 2 rather than 1. So there's the 2 we just made. We're going to skip our treble, skip that Solomon knot and the next Solomon knot. So skip 2 Solomon knots, find a single crochet in the middle and do a single crochet in there. Okay, then 2 more Solomon knots, 1 and 2, skip 2 Solomon knots, 1, 2, and single crochet in that previous single crochet. Okay, so we've got 2 left, 2 more Solomon knots, 1 and 2, skip 2, 1, 2, and single crochet in that last Solomon knot, single crochet. Okay, so that's a nice normal row. We just match up our Solomon knots. So you should have a stitch count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, 6 Solomon knots. Okay, so that's a nice even row. Now we need to do our weird odd row again. But we start off with 2 Solomon knots. But the very first one is going to be our side Solomon knot. So this one here is the one that sits on the edge. So we do another Solomon knot. So we start off with 2 Solomon knots, but this first one is going to be the one on the side. Turn our work, and then we just skip the 1 Solomon knot this time and do a single crochet in that previous single crochet. Okay, so this odd row, this Solomon knot sits at the side, and that's our first proper Solomon knot there. So then we do 2 Solomon knots. So if this all seems a little bit crazy and difficult and fiddly, then I recommend coming back to this when you're a little bit more practiced with crochet. Skip 2 Solomon knots, 1 and 2, and find that single crochet in the middle and do another single crochet in there. 2 more Solomon knots. Okay, skip 2, 1 and 2. Do a single crochet in that previous single crochet. Then we have 1 Solomon knot left, so we're going to do 1 Solomon knot, but because this is an odd row, we just do the 1 Solomon knot, then we're going to do a treble, so yarn over twice, skip the last, just 1 Solomon knot, find the single crochet next to it, and then work your treble crochet in there by yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. So the edges for our odd row consist of our treble and that first Solomon knot. Okay, see if I can pull the adjust the lighting a bit better so you can see. Okay, so that's our odd row. Now we go back to a nice normal even row. So we do 2 Solomon knots. Turn. Skip 2 Solomon knots, 1, 2. This time, so it's a nice even row. Single crochet in the previous single crochet. 2 Solomon knots, and just repeat that all the way across. So you need to alternate between these even rows and these odd rows. Skip 2, a single crochet, 2 Solomon knots, skip the last 2, 1 and 2, and that's the end of that row. So that's nice and easy, and you can see the pattern coming together. Because it's alternating, it creates this crisscross effect. So now we do an odd row. For our odd row, we still start off with 2 Solomon knots. So we always start off with 2 Solomon knots, no matter what the row. Turn, but we only skip 1 Solomon knot, just the one, and then do our single crochet, because that very first Solomon knot is our stitch on the sides. We don't count that as our stitch count. So we've technically only done 1, even though we've done 2. Then we do 2 Solomon knots. So I hope this makes sense. And you're not sick of a Solomon knot by now. Skip 2, 1, 2. Two Solomon knots. And skip 2, 1, 2. Then at the end we just do, we've got 1 Solomon knot left, we just do the 1 Solomon knot, just the one, and we have to finish up with a treble. So we yarn over twice, skip the last Solomon knot, find the, so there's our Solomon knot there, single crochet next to it, then yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. Okay, so there we go, that's an odd row, and then we'd go back to a normal even row. Okay, so there we go, there is the pattern coming together. So that's how you work the Solomon knot, and that's how you work it into a square. So you just work however many Solomon knots you want to do for a foundation chain. Try and work to an even number because it makes it a lot easier. Then once you got to the end, you do 2 more Solomon knots, and they're the ones that sit on top of your last 2. And then you work into the single crochet with a single crochet. Then work 2 Solomon knots, skip 2, single crochet, 2 Solomon knots, skip 2. Then for the next row, you need to do the odd rows. So we do 2 Solomon knots, but we only skip 1. 2 Solomon knots, skip 2, 2 Solomon knots, skip 2. And we do 1 Solomon knot, and then we finish with a treble and skip just the last one. And then it's back to a nice normal row. We do 2 Solomon knots, skip 2, 2 Solomon knots, skip 2, 2 Solomon knots, skip 2, then back to your odd row. And just repeat that again and again, and that shall work this sort of latticey, lacy effect, almost like little flowers that crisscross and link like this. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I hope you managed to follow along. I'll see you soon for some more crochet fun. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Happy Berry Crochet, and like and share, subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye.